State's a great place, so thank you for introducing us. I was hoping mine would be shorter and yours would be longer in terms of the introduction. It was also nice to,
advantage.
Yeah. Hello. And President Milner, Senator Milner. Nice to see Weber State well represented today. So, Howard, thanks for coming, man.
It's a long hour and a half from San Diego.
Yeah. We're going to have some fun today. So Howard and I are friends, and that's why I'm up here, right? So same question that President White answered. And I've been soliciting questions from a number of people in the audience on Twitter and otherwise. And Howard and I have been chatting a little bit. And we're gonna talk about some stuff. But at the end, if we've got time, and don't worry, I won't go long, we'll ask questions of the audience too, if we have some time. So we'll do a little bit of both. So let's start out, Howard, if we could. Long introduction, but there's some people here that probably still want to know more. So why don't we talk about your background, your childhood,
Yes,
all that stuff.
I am a super angel. It's a gift. My mom gave me nothing. But we do talk still. I'm born in Toronto, which accounts for people thinking I have a sense of humor. It shows I grew up watching Second City and some of the great comedians, doing a little stand-up myself, which is probably why I'm comfortable speaking in front of a group of people. And I appreciate Alex doing it in an interview, because if I ever do presentations, one slide ends up happening, and I talk about something completely different. I was born in Toronto. I moved to Arizona when I was for grad school. I'm Jewish. We like the desert. And that always works. I didn't know there was an ocean like 5 hours away, or I would have moved right to San Diego. But the desert was great. Went to ASU, 20 years there. Moved to San Diego after the real estate crash. I was investing in internet companies, never really a real estate guy in Arizona. LifeLock and Golf Now, which were incredible companies, still are. And not seeing enough deals. And I was like, well, if those, so it was easy to move. Anyways, 2 kids, 2 dogs, 1 wife.
That's good.
Yeah. So in dog years, I've been married 156 years, but married 19 years. And so I live in Coronado. It's a dream life. I'm very lucky, knock on wood. I have no complaints. I look at the world, but my world, as you hear me talk today, I'm a glass half full person. I look at the world, look at a glass of water, and I go, it's half full. And that is a different way of thinking. There's really only, to me, 2 ways of thinking. You look at that glass and see it as half empty or half full. I approach everything as half full.
That's a good way to approach things. Let's talk about tech, because that's why we're here. There's a lot of companies everybody's heard of that you're excited about. There's some that people haven't heard of that you're excited about. Talk about some new companies, old companies, interesting stuff that you're following, investing in, watching. What's happening?
Yeah, obviously the most interesting company of our newest generation is Uber, maybe Airbnb. Uber started out, you could have invested on AngelList at a $4 million valuation 4 or 5 years ago. It is now half the size of FedEx and growing, and really just getting started. I think the thing that Uber is proving right away to anybody else is that Wall Street as a model is broken, which is the focus of most of my life. In that, we could argue good or bad, but the point is there is no way to value these companies under metrics today. People are just starting to work at Uber, and the banking industry, as we know in the analyst industry, is shrinking at a time when people don't know how to estimate the size of these companies. So I think we're in an era where we're just seeing growth that's never been heard of, and there's less analysts covering this, which was an inspiration for StockTwits, of course, which is we're all equipped to do some basic analysis because a lot of us are working at fast-growing companies and will never go change jobs to go work at a bank. So we're just as qualified to analyze these companies as a banker.
So Uber's an obvious one. What other ones are less obvious or that you're using, that you're seeing that might be interesting to the group?
I'm geared financially. So there's an app that came out that we are angel investors in at Social Leverage called Robinhood. And Robinhood is counterculture in the sense that when we think of the financial world, it's very, oh, you can't do this. It's very esoteric. It's we supposedly just found a guy in his pajamas that brought the flash crash living in London. So, with an iPad and pajamas, you can crash the market, supposedly. We live in this world where we can arrest a guy who we say caused a flash crash, but we tell individuals that they don't know how to invest and they should just turn it over to a robo-advisor. So my opinion is hard-earned money, learn to speak the language yourself, whether it's Chinese or Spanish. Finance is just another language. It is a little bit complicated, but my mission is to make that simpler and to teach people the language of the markets, because it's a beautiful language.
So tell them what Robinhood.
Robinhood is a very simple mobile app, mobile first. It's a brokerage. They've taken out all fees and commissions. So it's basically an Uber platform for trading. And so my kids, anybody here can go pick a basket of the companies they really like, whether it's Nike, Under Armour, Facebook, Twitter, Shake Shack, push a couple buttons, own 1 share or 2 shares of each, pay no fees, and have a portfolio built themselves. And I think that's the fastest way to start learning the language of the markets. And it's, one of the greatest symbols of capitalism in the United States is our markets, the freedom to buy and sell things. And that's why eBay became such a great company, and now Etsy just went public. And the markets are the same thing, and they're finally being democratized in the next big wave. So that's why I'm focused on financial services. That's why StockTwits is so important to me. And at 49 years of age, domain experiences, we'll get to this question later, is so important. So that's why I'm in this boring, focused space that I'm in. But to me, it's exciting.
Boring, but it's been lucrative. It's been good. I mean, some cool companies. So talk a little bit about Meerkat, Periscope. We were talking about that in the hall. I mean, some other technologies that maybe some people are using or not. I mean, what's happening with online video? So he's got a lot. Who follows Howard on Twitter? Of 275,000 people.
How many people have already just blocked me?
So you're starting to mess around with online video, and we're starting to see that. Where do you think that's headed?
Well, I'm super bullish. I think Twitter's my favorite product. Chemists talk about blowing up things. I like to blow up things with words and with thoughts. And luckily for me, I'm connected to very smart people. Social to me, and this is where we get into video, social to me is like a new banking system. We talk about Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin guy, but we talk about banking and we keep talking about these new currencies. Well, the currency that nobody talks about and everybody says is overvalued is social currency. Now, there is inflation in the social world because my wife just joined Facebook and is addicted to it, but it took her 11 years. So you have this inflationary environment for social because it's so easy to access it, it's so easy to contribute. But like a banking system, the more you deposit, the more you have. So it's this real banking system that's developed that is more about the person. Facebook is the Citibank or Bank of America or JP Morgan all wrapped up in one because they connect everybody and they are the infrastructure for this banking system. Obviously Twitter and LinkedIn and all these Chinese and international companies as well, as is my company StockTwits, which is a very niche version of it, but are these new banking systems. And I forget the question.
So Howard said to me, hey, yeah, I'll come talk, but you got to sit up there with me and keep me on track, man. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get back to it. This leads to a question that was on the list. You're good at social media. I mean, you're fun to follow, interesting. You engage famous people, huge followings. Talk about social media. Talk about how people can use it, companies, individuals. I mean, you started to touch on that, but go a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it is men and women, very different, whatever they call it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or whatever that is. Men don't understand foreplay. And social media and is very much about foreplay. You can't just show up and demand things. You have to, engage a little bit. You have to give before you get. And so I liken this, companies expect magic. They're used to paying dollars, having stuff happen at the enterprise level. Maybe it's my gift, we don't know, but my whole idea is first engage, especially in sales, and social media is a form of sales. The more you give, the easier it is to ask for something, to extract something. So I think everybody can use social media. It's just a different use case for everybody. But we all have, as Steve Martin said in The Jerk, a special purpose. We are all experts at one thing. For me, I'm a social engineer. The game of Twitter to me is to connect. And I don't play games at home. I don't play games with my video games. But Twitter to me has been a video game. Is how do I get to that person, and what would I say to engage that person in a conversation? Now, generally, what never works is asking for something. But what that usually means is engaging in their conversation and furthering their conversation along. So I keep it really simple, and I think most people look at it as a daunting thing, just like opening a bank account. Oh my God, the paperwork, and I don't really have enough money to do it. But everybody has the power to contribute to it.
Well, you've done that with, Mark, your conversations with Mark Andreessen are pretty funny.
I challenge myself to engage. It's like a cold call, like with the telephone. But it's so much easier than a telephone where you would have to talk to the secretary and, do all these kinds of things, not that long ago where you couldn't even get access to the person. But now each of these people are in front of you. You just have to have the know-how how to present yourself to them. It's not like easy, but there's this less friction to get to the people that you want. And we see that with LinkedIn. And all this signal in this data that's just, they talk about big data, but it's real. And it may not be playing out so much in terms of companies being able to monetize big data, but we see with biotech companies, which are booming, that they're using all this technology for data purposes to move drug testing along, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this stuff that we're contributing in social is for a greater good, in my opinion.
Well, that's how we met.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah.
And, then once we're connected, even though we don't hang out, we've met.
I try and hang out.
I haven't been to, you got a bad skiing season, but I don't know, who do you blame in this town for that?
I don't know. We usually blame legislators for most bad things.
So once we're connected, it becomes electric.
I take full credit for no snow.
It just becomes electric. Once we're connected, then everybody starts moving those pieces along. So speed is what happens. It makes things harder to value, and that leads to the bubble question always.
Yeah, let's talk bubble. So we got a couple of billion-dollar companies in the audience that have been raising at pretty high valuations, gobs of money. It's happening like crazy in California, right? You're seeing huge valuations, big dollars.
Yes.
Hot topic. Is it a bubble? What's happening? Too much money? Too big valuations? I bet you've got some.
I have some good opinions. I try not to think of the world in terms of buy or sell or bubble or no bubble. Markets are simpler to me. There's fear and greed. And as long as you understand fear and greed and where you sit along that pipeline, you can make good decisions. Because it's all about making good individual decisions. And so right now, I think while people talk about the bubble, nobody talked about the oil bubble, which was a real bubble. While it was we had $130 oil. My 75-year-old mom's getting called by her broker to do oil trusts. North Dakota and Texas are booming, but yet we're talking about a tech bubble in Silicon Valley. So I like when I hear bubble. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying there seems to be more fear, both of it being a bubble, more fear of, oh my God, I'm missing out, and fear of, oh my God, the last time I invested, I lost a lot of money, versus greed. The greed was in oil. The greed has been in commodities. The greed has been in China and hoarding things. The greed has been in leverage. And that's why we started social leverages. We believed in 2008 that we had a peak in financial leverage, which was, three people continuing to borrow and building this huge bubble based, and all the pieces ended up exploding, and we're still paying that price. Whereas social leverage is where you and I connect, and then our networks connect, is a lot healthier type of leverage in the system because it speeds things along. So if we're going to call something that's 5 years old, which I call social leverage, and Facebook's a 10-year-old company, but really just relevant for the last 7 or 8, in terms of stepping out of just being college, I think that's silly to say bubble. Because again, Wall Street doesn't know how to analyze these things. There's nobody from these companies ever going to go work in the banking system to truly try and say, hey guys, you don't really understand the power of networks. So Wall Street's just completely unequipped to deal with this. So everybody's got to like use their own common sense and judge where they are on the fear and greed side of things.
So where are you?
Well, I'm 49. I'm just scared of everything. So I don't go to the doctor. That covers, not knowing if I'm sick. But I live in a world of maybe I'm Canadian, maybe I'm conservative. I think cash is a weapon, and I think now that I've made some money, it allows me to be fearful and greedy at the right times. And so I like to be opportunistic. Therefore, cash, when you have cash and you have friends, you can take more risks and you don't worry about what the media is saying. So I think that's the way I operate. I advise that, seeing that I seem to be a happy guy and living the life that some people seem to think is awesome, and it is awesome, that maybe I'm on to something, which is, use the power of the social network. It is a currency, save some money, get some domain experience, and then practice your skills along the fear and greed cycle, and don't listen to the media. I mean, old stream media. Listen to your group of friends.
So you passed, though, when Zynga came around because you thought the price was too high. You were in Twitter early. It came around again. You said, no, price is too high. So how does that apply? I mean, that was a few years ago. If you're passing then, are you passing now?
It's always scary. I think it's like, and I do a lot of sports analogies because I'm Jewish and I never could play sports.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Oh,
my son does not know he's Jewish. Therefore, he may achieve higher in sports.
I won't tell Max. I'll keep that quiet.
What was the question?
The question, you passed on second on Twitter and Zynga for valuation reasons.
You never feel good about this stuff. But I think one thing I try and teach people about the markets is, and this is why I'm so bullish on a StockTwits and a Robinhood, is the earlier you learn the language of the markets, the more private markets and public markets, all markets are very similar with supply, demand, and catalysts and valuations. And at the time, I was very new to the business. And when I invested in LifeLock, it was a $6 million pre-money company. It seemed fair to me. They were doing revenue. I liked the plan. GolfNow was a $2 million valuation at the time, and that felt fair. And I had sold my company, my company Wallstrip, to CBS for some ungodly amount of money at the time to me. And my investors in that company were Fred Wilson, who's, I think, my mentor and one of the great investors. And he had introduced me to a ton of friends, again, social leverage, Mark Pincus being one of them, who was, and we're in a no-tweet zone, please, one of the most difficult people of all time. And a really ornery, mean guy. He's about this tall. He's Jewish. And but we like not to say that amongst our group. And he came to me.
There's a group?
Yeah, there's a group.
Okay.
It's a secret handshake.
We have a group here.
And
in Utah. We have secret handshakes too. Right.
Ours are better. Ours are super secret.
So you won't tell me?
So I had gotten into this great network, and I made them a little bit of money. So I was now entered into the group, seeing deals, sharing deals. They would take my calls. I had to take their calls always. And at the time, Fred, who was putting the first money into Twitter, showed me Twitter. And I really was on my BlackBerry. This is 2007. And I was like, ooh, I went to the bathroom. Ooh. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen. If people talked about stocks doing this, that would disrupt Wall Street. And Fred was like, yeah, exactly. And he told me the valuation. I said he was crazy. It was a $20 million valuation. It was a good pass by me, obviously. I'm very against making money easily. And that 25 grand or 50 grand would be worth over 10 million today. And I'd be making snow, skiing on my own personal slope, not talking to you, if I had done that. The next one that I was genius to pass on was Mark Pincus and Zynga. And the mistake on Mark Pincus was, I didn't like him.
Do you still not like him?
No, he's
better now?
he's a genius. I mean, it's not about liking and disliking.
Well, that's why I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for?
This is a no tweet zone, but Mark had been such a difficult investor with me in Wall Strip, and I made him money, and he was always the most difficult person, even though we spoke the least. And I invited him into my next deal, which was Buddy Media, which became an $800 million exit to Salesforce. This was back in 2007, one of my first investments with the check post-Wall Strip, where I was flush and just felt like I was handing out checks. But I met Mike Lazaro, who started Buddy Media in a bar in New York. We both worked at CBS. He was like, I'm leaving CBS. I'm going to start another company. And I said, I'm in. I called Mark Pincus because he had just made money with me. And I said, Mark, blah, 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 Mark, Buddy Media, he's going to create a currency for Facebook. He goes, I'm in for $250,000, hung up the phone on me. 2 minutes later, he calls me back, and I go, oh, God, he's going to cancel that. And I'm sitting over with Mike, he goes, listen, I'm sitting with Peter Thiel. He's also in for $250,000, hangs up again on me. So I look at Mike, and I go, you got a round going. So at the first board meeting, Mark Pincus sat down and goes, this is the dumbest idea I'd ever heard. I would like my money back. And those are like the Mark Pincus stories. And we were in the bathroom talking about what was wrong with Michael Lazaro's, and I wanted to kill him at this point. And he goes, I'm going to start Zynga. It's going to be it's a poker app, and I'm going to blow up gaming on Facebook. And he goes, are you investing? And I said, yes, I'll invest. I was hoping he would never remember the conversation. Turns out, he goes, let's agree on terms. We're still in the bathroom. I said, why don't we do the same terms as Buddy Media? We agreed. We go back to the board meeting. Mike Lazaro looks at Pincus and goes, I'm not giving you back your money. That was the best decision Mark Pincus never was allowed to make. He starts Zynga. Next thing you know, I get a call from Fred Wilson. He goes, and there was a whole new price at a 20 million valuation, and that's why I passed. So stupid decisions to pass are always based in some kind of experience. But in hindsight, if the entrepreneur wants to be a billionaire and is, up to doing that type of stuff, they have that look about them, it's hard to say no. And with Twitter, what Fred taught me was if you like everything about the company and the product and the opportunity and you're worried just about price, hold your nose and write the check. And that's what makes probably Fred one of the best investors in the world, and I think it's really wisdom, and so I've been able to get those pearls of wisdom by passing, I've learned more from passing on Twitter and Zynga than I have by investing in Twitter later on in other companies, which is, there's different methods for everything, but missing stuff, you learn more than by doing things correctly and making money.
So let's talk about, you talked about some personality traits. You meet a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Where you live and where you work. What do you look for? What do you like? What's obvious to you? You talked about this $1 billion look. Aaron has that about him. So.
Where's Aaron? Aaron, stand up.
You're too late, man.
Yeah, I didn't like him.
Yeah. No, you did. That was it?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Just something about him.
Okay.
No, I don't know. It's not so much a look. I think there's this domain experience. If I was going to tell an entrepreneur to do one thing, is I don't know if it's that 10,000 hour stuff, but it is about domain experience. The earlier you find what you love, I have 2 kids, 15 and 17, and we stress, just like anybody with kids this of age, is we want them to be a net depositor, not a net subtractor. And all I want my kids to do is to be happy and to give, because I know that giving gets. But they're at an age where all they think about is themselves, So the more domain, the more you can find what you like early and build expertise in it. And if the better you're going to have all through entrepreneurship, right? Whether it's attracting that person who brings extra domain experience or raising money, especially with good investors, which is the goal, not just money, but good money, smart money, we talk about, is you got to have domain experience. Otherwise, the person investing the money is taking a much higher risk. And when problems really happen, if nobody has a domain experience around the table, you got nothing.
So what do you think about this idea of nice, mean, cutthroat, honest? Do you weigh that stuff, or is it really about business and the opportunity? And if you think they're going to make it, you want to work with people you like, right?
Yeah, I mean, I continue to make this mistake all the time. You know, you're sizing up people. I'm investing the first money with a group of people, and I got to pick the right people to do the deal with. I've got to have, you know, the right founder, and that has to be the right team, and then a lot of things have to go right. But I'm investing so early that they only have to get certain things right to get to the next point. You know, my expertise is very early on. I don't want board seats, etc. So, for me, if you don't have domain experience, I'm 49, I love fintech, I have partners that look at deals, obviously, in social leverage, but unless it's like something that I can size up myself to, meaning, as an investor, unless I think if the head of marketing gets hit by a bus, can I step in there and be the head of marketing or the head of sales? If I can't answer that question yes with enthusiasm, then as an early investor, I mean, it's just not smart. I'm not aligned. And my money just becomes a commodity in this whole thing, and I think that's probably the shakeout that we're headed to. Is there's a lot of people who think they're experts, but when things go sideways for 2 or 3 years, what really happens? And I don't think it's about money or this. It's just going to be about that 2 or 3 year sideways when it's hard to get your investors to answer a call because none of them really have domain experience to help you.
So does that mean a bubble bursts? Is that what you I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't look at it as, I look at it as fear and greed. You know, I think there's a lot of greed around certain things, but at the same time, it's not the whole population that's involved in this. It's a very specific set of populations. It hasn't been good for North Dakota, hasn't been good for Texas with oil dropping to $50 a share, but it doesn't affect the average, you know, person investing.
Agreed.
And so I think we have these pockets of I would say, massive greed, and then we still have this underlying fear, and it's creeping up around more of fear. Oh my God, I can't believe Domo just raised this money. I can't believe I missed it. There's this more of I can't believe I missed it, which scares me, but because that's leaning towards how you get a bubble. Mm-hmm. But you know, 2000 was a bubble. The credit bubble was a bubble. Bitcoin at $1,000 was a bubble. But it didn't, you know, but the credit one is the one that always was the big one. And I think we have this recency bias because, you know, banks almost, you know, Citibank was 99 cents. And the employees of Citibank had more money in, you know, just in cash. They didn't care about their stock at this point. They were trying to figure out if the cash they had in Citibank was going to be there tomorrow. So I think we're a long way, and so that fear lasts a lot longer than the greed part. And so I still think we're at this fearful stage. Okay. But you got to be careful. I mean, you know, it's your money. You know, you got to treat your money with respect.
So let's talk about advice. I mean, you've done a lot. You've been through a lot. You're 49 years old. Yep. So I feel like that Saturday Night Live skit. I'm 50. Remember that one?
I feel like 49.
Is that good? I'm 41.
I'm starting to take care of myself a little more. So I feel like 49 is the new 47. But I want it to be the new 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So okay. Sorry. It's fun to go back and forth. Good advice, bad advice, things you've learned. I know that there's a handful of things you've talked to me about over the last few years. Can you summarize a few of those things that you think are really, really good, really, really bad that you've seen or avoided?
Yeah. I mean, I love the markets because there's so much advice around managing money. Whether you're an entrepreneur managing your burn rate, or when you get to profitability, or when you need to step up your hiring, or when you need to raise more money, or whether it's the stock market, which again, I believe is this great tool that 14-year-old kids are probably old enough to start managing $200-300 in a Robinhood account and seeing pennies and dollars disappear. Finally, they can do that without, in a mobile-first environment. You know, the markets are connected. So whether you're an entrepreneur, the first thing I would do is give my kids a brokerage account and explain to them how profit and loss works and looking at their P&L. And whether it's $100 with 10 stocks, that means something to them. You've gamified it. At the other end, and it also teaches you when you're investing in stocks and markets, you're about managing your losses. You're not running a company, you're running your own P&L. Therefore, it's about managing your own budget, which is how much pain am I willing to take before I cut the loss and move on to something else. When you're running a company, it's very much the same thing. How quickly do I hire? When do I lay off? When do I raise money? When do I need to be profitable? Most companies need to be profitable from day one. So I think all those things are connected. And so the sooner you learn how to read the tape, how do you learn to read fear and greed, the better. That's the best advice. I've made that up, but that's the way I preach, and that's the way that's the way I live my life with giving. Is I believe people need to follow smart people. And in this era of social, and we look at, I use the Tour de France as a perfect example. The peloton, which, Tour de France, an old race, but the real concept is surviving the peloton. It's a very complicated thing to stay amidst a peloton for you bike riders. It's complicated. Just riding along with a group, it's scary. Yeah. It's fast, but it's like it's an ecosystem. And then depending on when you break free of the peloton decides the race. And that's not many breaks that happen. But surviving the peloton is important. With social, you have this ability to follow smart people. Meaning, I'll give you a Bitcoin example. When Warren Buffett thinks Bitcoin's very dumb. That's important, but it doesn't matter to me. Fred Wilson thinks Bitcoin is super interesting. That's interesting to me too. Not that doesn't mean I have to buy Bitcoin, but somewhere in between Fred Wilson, when Fred Wilson says it's not too late for him or early for him, and Warren Buffett says, leave me alone, there's this middle of the pie that says, okay, you know what, I can dip a toe in the water if I'm careful. And when Warren Buffett starts liking it, it's time to okay, Warren Buffett likes it, that's his game, but there's that middle of the road. And social allows you to connect to these pelotons to speed things up. So the best advice that I could give still is to engage in social, start making deposits, share stuff around your own expertise. It's not about how smart you are or how many links you have or how many likes you have. It's about building expertise. And people will find you because you're an expert at what you're an expert in. So people try and get all this creativity and they have to say the right thing. I would say no. You read all day. Share the stuff you read. People that have those same interests will find you. So that's the best advice.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
We good?
We're almost done, yeah. We're going to, a couple more questions, and then we're going to see if the audience has a few. Apple Watch.
Yes.
You getting one?
Oh, yeah. I was skeptical 6 months ago. What's that?
Comes out Friday?
Yeah. Like anybody should do with products. I'm long Apple. I've been long Apple a long time. Apple's been very, very good to me. The watch is interesting, right? First of all, I'm still bullish on Apple because of retail. I thought it was $1 trillion company. I don't know what $1 trillion means. It's just a cool thing to say. But really, I think they're a $2 trillion company. And here's why. Once you're at $1 trillion, what's the difference? But most importantly, what's $1 trillion amongst friends?
What's the other one besides Apple?
No one's close.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 2. So
nah,
I got you.
But they can get to $2 trillion. What Apple has is that culture, which is the store. Americans like shopping. Google has missed this trend. Of all things they've missed, this is the most important. Apple has the Genius Bar. My wife is now hooked for the next 40 years. I'm pretty much hooked. My kids are hooked. People want their electronics fixed, and we trust Apple. They're going to have to do a lot to screw that up. The watch is really important as a Trojan horse in the sense of we know they make great products, but we were all skeptical, why do we need another watch? I think when people try on the watch and realize this is more about fashion and getting rid of the phone, and dealing with the distractions of the world. I think Apple's taking a big risk, as they did all the time, in making the phone less important, which is a brave move at a time to move the phone to your wrist for many of the things that you have the phone in front of us. So I think we live in an era of this distractions, and Apple is making a bold bet in reducing some of those distractions, which would go counter to what their business model should be, which is selling more phones and computers. So I'm excited about that. That's risk-taking at a level, and most people are apathetic towards watches, so that's a big risk. So as soon as some people start using them, that's the upside in the stock, and that's why I'm excited.
So you think the Apple Watch will reduce distractions? Because there's a lot of folks think it'll increase distractions.
I don't think there could be anything more distraction than watching a group of people staring at their computer. We've stopped listening, for better or for worse. We're all engaged in our phones, but these screens are addictive. They're basically putting a screen off to the side, powered by your phone, which can be back in your pocket, which could bring back smaller phones again. I'd love to have a flip phone. That'd be cool with my watch. Meaning, how much am I really getting from my iPhone other than distraction, right? I need a few stock quotes, I need a few notifications, my kids need to text me, but let's face it, there's not much I need during work hours that can't be solved with a couple glances with important settings. Is this going to be overnight? No. But a big risk by Apple, and that's what you want to see from a company that's $700 billion. That's pretty bold.
Yeah, crazy.
So bullish, but and I'm excited to actually wear the product. It's a beautiful product.
Your wife, your kids, just you?
My kids don't need it. I don't think this is. I think this is going to be a slow bleed, and I think until there's an app that women can talk about amongst themselves, and we don't know that yet until people start wearing them. I don't think women are going to rush for it. I just think this is a great place for people. Once it starts going, I think it could get interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to try one. See.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and then we'll do a few minutes of audience stuff. Utah, what do you think the reputation is outside the state, the companies here, investors? I mean, surely, I'm assuming that you comes up on your radar.
Yeah, it's kind of, since I came here for, I've been coming skiing, but also the movie festival for a long time. Sundance. Yeah. And so Matthew Prince, who was Cloudflare, I randomly met him through Twitter, and he's running a huge company in the security space. Here, so I know a little bit about the ecosystem. There's a lot of public companies that come out of Utah, so it's obviously being here. It's electric. Just the showing today, and the universities. The key is the universities. So you've got a great ecosystem from university to people here their whole lives to year-round activities. You probably need you could use a couple hills in here in the middle of town just to make it look a little bumpier. But it's got the airport's easy. I mean, to me, the airport matters.
Yeah.
So the airport's easy. I mean, it's hard to get negative about Utah. It's just you got to have this ecosystem, and I don't have the advantage of having it, and I'm trying to invest where I'm good. So that's an opportunity for everybody.
So do you see deals from Utah ever in fintech?
I do. Matthew has introduced me.
Oh,
You have introduced me to a lot. Yeah. But because I am I'm not an expert in the network here and set in my own ways, it's hard for me to take that leap.
We're going to invite you back.
Yeah, so happy to come back.
Okay, well, that kind of wraps up our question time. Has anybody got a burning question from the audience that we can yell out? We can hear from most people. Is there anybody that's courageous enough to ask one? No? Yes?
He's leaving.
Oh, he's out of here. He doesn't have a question. He's ready to leave. Yeah, there we go.
Oh. Yeah, sorry. So I'm a small personal investor in Meerkat. When I saw Meerkat, I was instantly engaged. The founder understood video. He was willing to walk away from something that actually had a little bit of traction because he saw something that was electric. I am a Twitter person, so I believe real-time broadcasting is the future, and we're disrupting cable companies. We're seeing it before our eyes. I grew up with kids that loved the Disney Channel. I don't think I've seen them turn on the TV in the last 5 years. That's an important trend. Unbundling content is an important trend. Well, Meerkat is an extension of unbundling. It's just a matter of who wins this race, who raises the right money at the right time. Periscope has a huge edge because they're on the Twitter graph, but that is also a problem for Twitter because they don't understand open. They have public they have quarterly results to meet, and so Meerkat has a really good edge around building other networks with their product, whereas Periscope is locked down on the Twitter stream. And so it's early. It's like early days, but I was more bullish thinking that I would use it more. And based on the first month, I haven't been using it for whatever reason. So I'm a little, but I still believe it's just a massive trend. And the Twitter graph is very important for broadcasting. So we're like day one, I would guess, finally, where you're not a slave to YouTube. I think the people worried are the YouTubes, the Comcast as usual. ESPN, Disney has been the smartest about all this. So it's really an exciting time, and Meerkat means something all the way up to Comcast, which is just amazing, because I got a Verizon bill that was like I'm their best friend right now because I was using these services. I was using 1 billion gigabytes. They own my home now. 1 month they own my home. So I think when you have a startup that gets the attention of Comcast, I mean, and Netflix, you have something interesting. Now it's an execution, and a lot of things have to go right, but I'm excited by it. Does that help?
Great answer. Good question. All right. I think that's it. Thanks, Howard. A lot of fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.